The story starts with this guy. He dropped out of school at 16 to go to work. He found a job hauling blocks of ice. Suddenly, a loud, blaring horn went off right behind him. Behind the wheel was a rich kid about his age, and next to him sat a girl in fancy clothes. The rich kid kept laying on the horn, telling him to move, and he didn't even try to hide his sneer. The massive gap between their lives weighed on him like a ton of bricks. Right then, a newspaper caught his eye. Splashed across the front page was the legendary story of Andrew, a guy who came from nothing, dropped out of school young, and built himself into a billionaire from the ground up. He realized that where you start out doesn't have to be where you end up. Right there, he made a silent vow to himself. He was going to be just like Andrew. He was going to become a real billionaire. When Reed finally made it home, all that was waiting for him were the cold leftovers his family had left behind. Just then, he heard his mother coughing from the bed nearby. Her condition had gotten worse again. Reed asked his dad why he hadn't gotten her medicine, and the answer was always the same. There's nothing I can do. Reed pulled out that newspaper. He told his father that he was going to be just like Andrew. He'd work his way up to becoming a billionaire, and when that day came, he'd buy a whole hospital outright and bring in the best doctors in the world to cure his mother. But that big dream was only met with his father's cold dismissal. He looked at his father's numb, worn-out face, then at his younger siblings, their eyes dull from hunger. Reed didn't argue back. He just fell silent. That night, Reed took one last look at his sleeping brothers and sisters, then walked over to his mother's bedside. She already seemed to know what was on his mind. She didn't try to stop him. She just looked at him with nothing but guilt and heartache. She felt like she was holding her son back. Neither of them knew it yet, but this was their final goodbye. But Reed was still young, and he had no idea that after this parting, he would never see his mother again. The next morning, Reed showed up at the train station. He didn't have money for a ticket, so he planned to hop on a freight car. Just as he was about to make his move, a pair of strong hands yanked him back. It was an old-timer who knew every trick in the book for sneaking rides. The man warned him, dead serious, that he had to wait until the train was already moving before he jumped on. Otherwise, the station guards would catch him for sure. He calmed Reed's nerves and told him to be patient, and they waited together in the shadows. When the train finally blew its whistle, the old-timer took off with Reed at his side. Right as the station guard was about to grab him, Reed made it. He jumped on board and got away. Eventually, he made it to Texas. He wandered around with no real direction and saw a group of men all heading the same way. His instincts kicked in. He figured there might be work over there, so he followed them. He ended up at a huge farm where the owner was hiring hands to build fence. Standing next to all those big, strong guys, Reed was small and scrawny, so he had to fight twice as hard to prove himself. He shouted, "I can do this," to show his strength. He spun around and hoisted up a heavy-set guy next to him. That goofy, determined move made the farm owner laugh. He liked the kid's drive, so he decided to give him a shot. And just like that, they all got to work out on the farm. Fencing was pure grunt work. You had to drive heavy wooden posts into hard, packed dirt. And Reed, with his small frame, was clearly at a disadvantage. He busted his back for most of the day, and when he finally got one post in the ground, one of the other workers gave it a light shove and it toppled right over. The guy sneered, "Maybe you should stick to building rabbit pens." All that mockery and ridicule lit a fire in Reed's gut. While the other guys sat in the shade taking a break, he stayed out under the blazing sun, reworking his posts over and over again to make them solid. At night, the workers sat around playing cards and gambling. Reed sat off to the side, writing in his journal. He didn't join in on their short-lived fun because he didn't want to end up like them, pushing 40 or 50, still scraping by on a couple bucks a day. He went to the farm owner and asked him for advice on how to succeed. The owner liked this ambitious young man, and he shared the secret to his own success. His words gave Reed a brand new idea. He pitched a proposal to the owner. If he could finish the job ahead of schedule, could he get the extra labor cost as a bonus? The owner said, "I really do like you, kid, but you can't do it." The next morning, when the workers got up, Reed was nowhere to be seen. They all figured the hard work had scared him off. But when they walked to the job site, laughing and talking trash, they were completely stunned by what they saw. Turns out, Reed had been working there all night long. On top of that, he'd figured out a system to make the work faster. He split everyone into different teams. One group handled the measuring, then dug the holes. Another group set the posts in place, and the rest took care of burying them and stringing the wire. It made the whole operation way more efficient, and it meant everyone could get paid early. The guys were all for it. Under Reed's direction, a job that should have taken 3 days got finished in just one. The farm owner was thrilled and paid everyone their wages. He also kept his word and gave Reed the money he'd saved on Labaris a bonus. Once he had that paycheck in hand, he didn't blow it on anything flashy. The first thing he did was send it straight home to buy medicine for his mother. Just as he was trying to figure out what to do next, a man walked past him. The shiny gold belt buckle caught his eye right away. Reed knew in his gut. This guy had serious money. He humbly asked the man for his secret to getting rich. The man, clearly enjoying the admiration, smirked and said, "There's gold all over Texas." A word popped into Reed's head. "Oil," he asked, half guessing. "You mean oil?" The man just gave a little smile and walked off. That vague, loaded answer only made Reed more certain of the path he needed to take, the key to becoming a billionaire. While his mind was still spinning with thoughts of oil, news of Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor spread to every corner of America. He signed up to enlist right away. On the front lines of World War II, he was hit by an artillery shell, and a fellow soldier risked his own life to drag him to safety. Years later, after the war ended, Reed poured every dime he had into drilling for oil. But all the machinery brought up was dirt. After months of nothing to show for it, his workers lost all hope and walked off the job right in front of him. Facing that scene of abandonment, Reed started to doubt himself. Maybe this business really wasn't for him. He moped around day after day, even neglecting his family. His wife reminded him that his family should come first, not some never-ending oil well in a pile of unpaid bank bills. Filled with guilt, he went out to the yard and played catch with his son for the first time in a long time. While they were playing, his son said something that gave him a new spark of hope. The boy asked if he could teach him how to throw a curveball. Reed said, "I don't know how." The boy asked, "Well, someone must know how. What do you call those people?" Reed answered without thinking, "Experts." It hit him. He didn't know the first thing about geology. Why not hire someone who did? He immediately brought in a top oil Cantan expert at a high price. The guy showed up with all kinds of strange instruments and quickly pinpointed a likely spot. Meanwhile, back at home, his wife was with the kids, when a man covered head to toe in black oil came bursting through the door. The moment she saw him, she ran over and held him tight. All those years of hard work had finally paid off. They calculated the reserves. That field was big enough to make him worth a fortune. But right as he was celebrating his dream finally coming true, trouble showed up at his door. The farm owner who'd sold him the land sued him the second he found out there was oil underground. Court day came right on schedule. Under Texas law, the statute of limitations for property disputes was 2 years, and the contract had been signed 2 years and 2 months ago. So before the trial even really started, the other side had already lost. Reed hired Leo on the spot as his legal counsel. With Leo's help, Reed's oil company in just a few decades bought up huge swaths of land and built his own business empire. But all that rapid wealth brought new problems too. His kids grew up in luxury, and they all turned into lazy, entitled playboys. Other than asking for handouts, they had zero ambition or direction in life. Reed saw it all, clear as day, but he was too caught up in chasing even more money to ever slow down and deal with it. At that point, his main goal was to head to Tulsa and buy up a struggling oil refinery. If he could close that deal, he'd finally achieve the dream he'd held since childhood. But years of easy wins had made Reed arrogant and overconfident. His cocky, dismissive attitude rubbed the refinery owner the wrong way. The man told him, "You haven't made a good impression on me. You're rude, selfish, and greedy." He told Reed to wait for his call. Reed and Leo waited at the hotel for 2 weeks, with still no word from the guy. When Christmas Eve rolled around, Leo had had enough. He said to Reed, "Let's just go home and spend Christmas with our families." But Reed dug in his heels. He wasn't leaving without that refinery. Leo said, "You can wait here as long as you want, but I'm not missing Christmas with my family. You can dock my pay, you can fire me, I don't care." For Leo, family would always come before money. He walked out, leaving Reed alone in that huge hotel room. The next morning, the plant owner finally handed over the contract. He told Reed he'd dragged his feet on purpose, just to knock him down a peg, to teach him that money didn't mean he could push everyone around. A few days later, the news of Reed's acquisition of the Tulsa refinery was plastered all over the papers. His company's value had hit the $1 billion mark. He'd finally made good on the promise he made as a kid. But when he got excited and looked around for someone to share it with, there was no one there. Joy mixed with a crushing loneliness washed over him. He rushed to pack his things, ready to head home to his family. But just then the hotel phone rang for him. Leo had gotten into a terrible car crash on the way back. Both his kidneys were shattered. He was barely hanging on, kept alive by dialysis. When Reed got to the hospital and saw his best friend lying there, barely clinging to life, it finally hit him. In his mad chase for billions, he'd lost far more than he'd ever gained. only at that moment. Did Reed truly understand that family, friendship, and the presence of loved ones were the real treasure in life? While looking over Leo's medical records, he realized they had the same blood type. Without a second thought, he decided to donate one of his kidneys to Leo. It wasn't just about repaying his friend. It was about redeeming his own lost soul. After going through that life and death moment, Reed finally saw his life clearly. After he got out of the hospital, the first thing he did was gather his whole family and announce that from then on, all future company profits would go into a new charitable foundation to help people in need. Looking at the unhappy faces on his kids, Reed was deeply disappointed. He handed each of them $10,000 and told them to use it to learn something or to help others. But most of them took the money and immediately forgot everything he'd said, already scheming on how to blow it all. Just when Reed and his wife were losing hope, his youngest son came back and returned the money to his father. He said he already had enough, and he wanted that $10,000 to go into the foundation instead to help people who needed it more. Seeing how responsible his youngest boy was, Reed felt a warmth in his heart. He knew that his years of being absent from home were what had led to his kids' rebellious ways. Even though only his youngest passed the test, for Reed that was already the best outcome he could have hoped for. He saw hope. His charity would live on through the one child who understood how to give. And that's where the movie ends. The film, The Ultimate Life. If you think of it as just a business biopic about how to succeed, you're missing the point. It's more like a deep, soul-searching inquiry into the true meaning of life and wealth. Through Reed Stevens' wild, eventful journey, it paints a vivid portrait of a man who went from material poverty to profound spiritual richness. Right when Reed stood at the very peak of wealth, finally becoming the billionaire he'd always dreamed of being, the film showed us another side of success: loneliness. He'd won the whole world in his career, but he'd lost his family in the process. His kids turned into parasites who only knew how to burn through cash. His wife drifted further and further away from him, and his closest friend paid the price for his stubbornness. At that point, all the money piling up only made the emptiness inside him stand out more. And that's exactly the core message the film wants to get across. If getting rich costs you your family, your friends, and your peace of mind, then that kind of success is, in its own way, a complete failure.